Good evening, everyone. My name is Conor and I sit on the Wicklow Public Participation Network Secretariat. On behalf of the Wicklow PPN Secretariat and Wicklow Older People's Council, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody joining us tonight. We would like to thank our PPN members and the Older People's Council for working with us on this event and for sending in your questions. There was a great response, and with less than 2 hours at our disposal, it would be impossible to have them all answered. We've prioritised the questions that had a recurring theme and will aim to get as many as possible answered. However, we have also sent all the questions to the candidates so they are aware of what's important in our communities, and if we run out of time, you still have a question you'd like the candidates to be aware of, please email it in to us and we will pass it on. We would like to thank the candidates who have joined us this evening. We appreciate your engagement with us and look forward to hearing about why you are running and what's important to you. We would like to thank Harriet Emerson for agreeing to facilitate tonight's meeting. Harriet has worked with PPNs at local and national level for a number of years. She supported our PPN in developing our vision for community wellbeing in 2018, developing our strategic plan in 2023, and she facilitated a collaborative project with our PPN and Wicklow County Council that resulted in the establishment of the County Wicklow Social Inclusion Network. She acts as an independent facilitator in a wide range of engagement contexts. Helen and Grania will support Harriet with timekeeping and webinar support. Tonight's meeting will begin with each candidate providing us with some information about themselves. Candidates will be permitted 1.5 minutes maximum. It is important that the candidates stick to this time frame to allow everyone equal speaking time and to ensure there's time for questions. A clock will run and will be visible on screen beside Grania, and should candidates run over, we will mute them after 5 seconds. However, we hope we won't have to do that. In corresponding with the candidates prior to this meeting, we have asked that where they cite facts or figures, they should also provide their information source or evidence base. Wicklow PPN and Wicklow Older People's Council value diversity, and we operate on the principles of respect, equality, and inclusion. We expect that everyone on this call this evening conducts themselves in the same spirit. However, in the unlikely event that dialogue should become insulting, abusive, incendiary, or inappropriate, we reserve the right to remove the perpetrator. It is the role of Wicklow PPN and Wicklow Older People's Council to support our members to have their voices heard. We do this in the most part by making supportive connections. We are looking forward to making connections this evening that we hope will be beneficial for everyone now and into the future. Please be aware that we are recording this session and will make it available through our YouTube channel for people who were unable to join us this evening. I would now like to pass the meeting into Harriet's capable hands. Thank you.
Thanks, Conor. Well, everybody has heard there's very clear ground rules to make sure that we can have a respectful discussion, hearing from candidates and their responses to the questions which members of the PPN and the Older People's Council have provided in advance. The questions have been given to the candidates, as Conor said, and again, we need to ask the candidates to keep their responses brief and on point to allow everyone time to speak and to make sure that the members' input's honoured. Unfortunately, we won't have time for debate, but we will try and get through as much material as we can. So what we're going to do is give each of the candidates their initial 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves and inform us about their party, if any, they're affiliated to. And we're going to do this in alphabetical order. And we will then continue in alphabetical order, but rotating. It'll all become clear in the end, I promise. So I'm going to start, please, this evening by just saying that we have had apologies from Joe Behan, from John Brady, from Rob Carey, and also from Paul O'Brien. I just wanted to register those. But in the first instance, and Grania will be timing this, you'll see the timer come up on her screen when you start. I'm going to ask people to take that 1.5 minutes and introduce themselves. And I'm going to start, please, with Shay Cullen.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, hello. My name is Shay Cullen. I'm standing as an independent candidate in the Wicklow constituency. And I suppose the reasons I'm standing as an independent candidate for the upcoming election is because many communities in Wicklow feel that their voices and concerns are not being heard on an equal footing at national level. Our county urgently needs investment in rail and bus services, along with long overdue upgrades to the N11 and 81. Our rural communities are in need of investment. We have lacking school places. We have serious problems with our transport services. And I feel that I can be a voice for the people of Wicklow going forward to represent them in Dáil. And it's important that we have a rural voice outside the Bray Greystones area. The message that I keep getting told every door I call to is that we have no representation outside Bray and Greystones. And I think it's important that there's equal representation across the county. So I'm standing as an independent candidate to make a difference for the people of Wicklow and represent them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Now can I pass to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Thanks very much. Can I thank the Public Participation Network, first of all, but more importantly, thank the members of the PPN for everything you do in our community here in Wicklow. I grew up in Wicklow, very involved in local organisations, from sports to scouts to life-saving. I love our county. I think we have an amazing county. I think there is more we need, and there's more we need to do. There's more support we need from central government. I've been honoured to be a TD for Wicklow for the past 14 years, and I've been very involved in a lot of our local community groups like the Bray Area Partnership, Men's and Women's Sheds, sports groups, family resource centres and other organisations. Particularly over the last 4.5 years as Minister for Health, I've been able to directly support a lot of our organisations, be it St. Joseph's, Purple House, all of our cancer support groups, our Meals on Wheels daycare centres. I've opened 4 new primary care centres. We've directed really important money to the men's and women's sheds, and then a lot of sports capital grant and equipment grant to sports clubs right across the county. But we need more. And the reason I want to run again, the reason I would love your support is to be able to bring more money, more resource, increased wages. In health, we are about halfway through what needs to be done. And specifically in Wicklow, I want to get the Greystones Primary Care Centre open, the Wicklow Town one extended, the Baltinglass Day Centre open, St. Coleman's open, a lot more money for cancer support, Meals on Wheels, men's sheds, and a new approach in terms of investment in areas of deprivation.
Thank you. And can I pass now to Ciaran Hogan?
Hello there. My name is Ciaran Hogan. First thing you need to know is I'm very bad at timekeeping, so let's see if I can manage it in a minute and a half. I am a father of 2 wonderful girls. It's very important to me that we collectively are making Wicklow and Ireland the best it can be for all of our children's sakes. Originally, I'm a trained commercial pilot, so I have an ATPL, Air Transport Pilot's license, issued from the EASA. I left that profession to come back to Ireland in 2016 and start my own business as an entrepreneur. I've run that business successfully for the last 8 years, surviving COVID lockdowns, many other struggles that every business entrepreneur will know. I'm running with Aontú because they are the only party that I've seen to stand up to the groupthink, to the wastefulness, and to the many, many flaws which we've seen in the direction this country is going. We recently defeated the 2 referendums. We were the only party to stand up against those. We were the only party to stand up against the hate speech laws, which again were defeated, but it seems may be coming back in the next Dáil session. And many other instances I won't have time for here, where Aontú have stood alone against the mainstream parties or the mainstream mechanism. I have been very involved in my local area. So I have been with the Bray Tidy Towns, the local Sea Scouts group. I've started a group here called the Bray Dads Network. And many other organizations around, voluntary organizations, where I want to see grassroots solutions to problems, people coming together and making Wicklow better in every way.
Thank you, Ciaran. It is challenging sticking to the times, so I really appreciate the efforts everyone's making. Can I pass now to Stephen Matthews, please?
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for organising this. It's so important to connect with our communities and the constituents, and we can't possibly get onto every single door, though we do try our very best. The first thing I would say is that Wicklow is an absolutely fantastic county, and being a TD here for the last 4 years has given me the opportunity to go and visit so many places in Wicklow that I honestly had not been to before, and met with community groups, with sports groups, with voluntary groups, and it was that struck me as the important role for a TD, to connect the communities, to connect those really good people that work in those communities. And I think in politics, we're always sniping at each other. We're always saying we're better than you and we don't like that. Da, 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 da. People just want a nice place to live. They want job security. They want climate action. They want good public transport. They want a safe place for their places for their children to go to school, and just a safe place to grow and live up. And that's what drives me. And that's been a privilege of the job. And every day I walk into Leinster House and I walk through those gates, I actually catch my breath and I say, how did I get here? You know, I started life as a apprentice electrician on the railway and just worked my way up through activism, got involved with the Green Party because it was climate change and nature loss that was driving me. And for about 20 years or more, I've been knocking on doors about climate action and biodiversity loss. And people thought I was mad 20 years ago, and they probably still think I'm mad. But that's what drives me every single day. And I just want to continue the job that I've done over the last 4 years. And I want to do that for the next 5 years for Wicklow. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Kellie McConnell, please?
Thank you so much. So I am the candidate for People Before Profit. I'm a healthcare worker for the last 15 years, and I am a public dentist in Wicklow Town and in Arklow. I've been a member of People Before Profit since 2018, when I was involved with the Together for Yes campaign, and I saw the other PBP members walking the walk and not just talking. And I never thought I would stand for election, but I've learned so much over the last 6 years. And I want to challenge this idea that we don't have enough for us all. The austerity in Ireland is a choice, and it comes from above, and we can change that. We can have enough homes, we can have world-class healthcare, and we can take meaningful action to stop genocide and climate collapse. I just don't see that happening, and we have to change our approach, and I would like to be part of that. I believe People Before Profit have the experience and the energy to make things so much better for the majority of us. Another Ireland is possible, and we're ready to make it a reality. So we're asking for your #1 vote, please.
Thank you. And can I go now to Edward Timmins, please?
Hi there, everyone, and you're all very welcome here. Nice to meet you all face to face like this. I'm Edward Timmins. I'm a Fine Gael candidate in the upcoming general election. I was first elected to Wicklow County Council in 2004, and I've been elected in every election since, including recently in June. As a councillor, I brought changes to the way the council spends money and the way meetings are conducted. As chairman, I introduced the monthly manager's report, which is now central to the running of every council meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I originally graduated as an engineer from Trinity, and then soon after qualified as a chartered accountant. I've worked in business for many years as finance director. I studied and worked in France, Germany, and Switzerland, and I also set up companies abroad in the UK, Spain, and the US. I want to bring my experience, my deep business experience, to national politics. I want to bring my financial and business experience. I want to make long-term plans and invest in our future, just like what businesses do. I also want to control costs, which is sadly lacking at national level. I want to help solve problems, not just talk about them. If I'm successful, I want to be successful in bridging the gap between being a councillor for 20 years, where I've listened to people all over Wicklow and heard their problems, and I want to bridge that gap between day-to-day issues people have and national politics and national policies. I'm asking for support here this evening and looking for your #1 vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And can I come please now to Jennifer Whitmore?
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone, and thanks for the invite this evening. I'm Jennifer Whitmore. I'm the Social Democrat TD for Wicklow and have been for the last 5 years. Prior to that, I was a councillor. I started out before politics as an ecologist. So, since I was 17, I've either worked or studied in the area of ecology and environmental law. I worked in Australia for 10 years with the New South Wales government, implementing legislation and policies over there in relation to water rights. So I'm really passionate about the environment and protecting nature, because I think we have really failed to do so to date. I'm also a mother for 4 children. So I'm really passionate about making sure that Wicklow is the best place for them and for all children to grow up in. And I think that, we have a fantastic community and a fantastic country, but there are things that we could do better. And I want to work to try make those things better. The one thing I'm hearing when I'm going around on the doors at the moment is we haven't had enough investment in Wicklow, things that public services are lacking. So public transport, school places, school buses, these are the issues that are really coming up time and time again. And as a Social Democrat, our key priority is investment in public services to make sure that everybody has access to the real fundamental services that everyone needs and that we will all really need to thrive. So thank you for the invite and look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Okay, so we've heard, if you like, from the candidates themselves, and we're moving on now to the questions that have been submitted from members of the PPN and the Older People's Council in Wicklow. So I'm going to start with the first question, which the candidates have seen, but just so that everybody who'll be viewing this knows. The first question relates to community and voluntary groups and clubs, which are providing many of the essential services in our communities. And the question is, how will you support this voluntary effort and ensure that the services are adequately resourced and supported to ensure their sustainability with sufficient capital, operational funding on a multi-annual basis, and pay parity across the sector? And again, in an alphabetical order, but rolling that on, I'm going to ask first, please, for Stephen Donnelly to answer.
Thanks very much. The short answer is money. Our community groups know what to do with the money, so we don't need to be prescriptive in terms of how this should be done or that should be done. What we've got to do is we've got to get central funding and council funding to our groups. As I was saying there previously, as minister, it has been very rewarding to be able to make sure that money is coming to our groups here in Wicklow. So, for example, Meals on Wheels now have access to €25,000. Work very closely with Purple House to make sure there's $5.5 million for cancer support groups around the country. The men's and women's sheds are getting money from social protection. Critically, there is a pay parity process in place. There was an 8% increase last year and a process to full parity, which I think is badly needed and will make a big, big difference.
Thank you very much. And can I ask the same question, please, to Ciaran Hogan?
Yes. As I said in my introduction, I've been very involved with groups on the ground, from the Tidy Towns, the Sea Scouts, and many others. I've seen that it is these volunteer organizations that are the powerhouse of positive social change that we need. And so it is in everyone's collective interest to support them maximally as we can. What I don't want to see is money wasted, thrown at a project to say, look how much money we're spending. What I want to see is bang for buck. That's in everything that I'm going to do. I want to have an audit of where the money is going and what is the social good, the return of that. What are these groups, the activities they get into, the social change they're enacting, and how efficient they are. Now, I know they are very efficient. It is always the groups on the ground who are interacting with people. They're starting off from volunteers, from people with the most enthusiasm, and we need to support those. The first thing I want to do is put out a message, contact each and everyone. I want to have a full list of who's doing what in what sectors.
Sorry, Ciaran, the clock is against everybody, and I'm afraid we just have to work with that for the moment. Can I ask the same question, please, to Stephen Matthews?
Yes, thank you. I think the first thing we have to realise is that a lot of the good things in our county wouldn't function without these community and voluntary groups. And I think there's some people that don't recognise that. I certainly do, from having visited the groups and listening to them. And I know one thing for certain, they are drowning in administrative burden. And it's something that we really need to address, because we're finding it hard to get people to go onto voluntary groups boards, onto sports clubs boards, onto all of those community groups boards, because it is very, very time consuming for them. And there's a certain level of responsibility and onus when you're taking in funds to account for it. And even the application process, they're a minefield. I've had community groups come to me and say, is there funding for this? And I've gone back to them. First of all, it's like doing a thesis yourself, trying to work out, are they eligible? Are they eligible, but are they eligible for that thing that they're looking for? So I think there's plenty of funding, there's plenty of goodwill, there is recognition of the work that they do, but I think we need to simplify and streamline it. And that doesn't mean make it unaccountable. It does need to be accountable, but we need to streamline it.
Thank you very much. And can I ask the same question to Kellie McConnell, please?
Thank you. So Ireland is one of the richest countries in the world. We should have excellent public services and the resources to support them. Because we don't have the crucial infrastructure or political will that we all need to live and thrive, community groups and volunteer groups do incredible work to help us help each other. But this shouldn't have to be the case. In functional societies, like in Japan, community and volunteer groups can focus on enriching their lives and their neighbours, friends, families' lives. So people before profits approach is to invest in excellent quality public healthcare system, state construction company, public transport system. So we're not competing for basic human needs. We would reinstate the community funding that was cut during the crash and ensure pay parity for Section 38 and 39 workers in line with their HSE colleagues. And our approach gives people time to get involved in our communities as a choice, struggling to survive.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, I already support these groups and will continue to do so. I do this by working with them and securing grants primarily through Wicklow County Council. And these grants include community grants, community enhancement grants, council discretionary funding, Christmas light grants, sports capital grants from national government, and many other grants. And I'll continue to do this. I also liaise with developers to ensure there's a community gain where there is a large-scale development in our towns. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask the same question to Jennifer Whitmore, please?
Yeah, look, our community groups they do incredible work across the county, indeed all across the country. I think it's really sets Ireland apart actually from other countries, the community goodwill and collaboration at a local level. And I think it's something that we really need to value and treasure. I think there's a number of things that could be done to assist. I think multi-annual funding is really important, because these community groups need to have certainty about what work they're going to be able to do, not just in the next few months, but actually over a longer period of time. And pay parity, particularly for the HSE and the Section 39s, is really important, because they're actually performing a really valuable public service and really function of, that work should be done by government. And I think it's really important that the same paying conditions are available there. And I think, as Steve Matthews is saying, in relation to admin, because I've been part of these groups as well, and it can be such a big job to get funding, like it's nearly a full-time job in itself. So I think that element needs to be addressed.
Thank you. And can I ask Shay Cullen on the same question?
Thank you. Yes. First of all, I suppose the community and voluntary clubs, you'd have to say, is the lifeblood of our society. Whether that's town teams, tidy towns, voluntary groups, we need to continue to support these groups. And I suppose the reality is they do essential work that maybe sometimes the local authority should be doing. So it's very much a volunteer situation. But I would agree that the bureaucracy and sometimes the insurance impediments are detrimental to a lot of these clubs. And I certainly think we need to support them better, because there at times the frustration of applying for grants, maybe not getting them because of applications are so onerous. It's certainly something that needs to be looked at to make it a more simplistic system for voluntary groups who do all this work to access funding in an easier capacity.
Thank you. I should perhaps have flagged the fact that our answer times have reduced from the 1 minute 30 to just a minute. So I very much appreciate everyone trying to work to those. Okay, our second question, which again we'll ask to everybody, is relating to housing. And it is this: taking into consideration construction skill shortages and the efficient procurement of materials, how will you, your party, work with the local authority to increase affordable housing that caters for all housing needs? And does this include supporting people to downsize? And could I ask that question first, please, to Ciaran Hogan?
Yeah, can you hear? Firstly, Aontú have just announced Operation Shamrock, whose main goal is to bring back all of our skilled tradesmen who have left the country over the last number of years, as there just wasn't a standard of living, or there wasn't viable opportunities here for them. We need to be able to bring back all the skilled tradesmen who have left the country in order to build the houses, the infrastructure, everything we need. So various tax breaks are all included in that. I don't have time to get into it, but we have the capacity, both the money, the manpower, and the organizational skill to do that if we set it as a priority. Clearly, it has not been set as a priority, and so we're in the situation that we're in. More information on that Operation Shamrock can be found on our website. I think that's my time up.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Stephen Matthews, please?
Harry, could you repeat the question, please? I didn't catch the second part of it.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Taking into consideration construction skills shortages and the efficient procurement of materials, how will you or your party work with the local authority to increase affordable housing that caters for all housing needs? And does this include supporting people to downsize?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the affordability in housing is a massive question. There's no doubt about it. We're all pretty much aligned on the number of houses that we have to build, because that's based on evidence, and we know population growth and household sizes and obsolescence and a whole lot of different factors feed into that. As an electrician, I worked in many houses over the years, houses built through the 20s right up through the 80s and the 90s, and there's no comparison between the housing that we're building these days and the housing from previous decades. It's a far superior product, and it costs a lot of money. And that's the key question people are not answering, is how do you take something that's incredibly expensive to make and make it affordable for somebody to purchase, to rent, whatever it might be. And there are a number of ways of doing it. If you break down the different cost factors that make up the cost of a house, it's about 50% hard costs, it's about 50% soft costs. So there is ways we can trim those down. But one of the key ways is on dereliction and vacancy, to make those 1 and 2 bedroom units available in our towns. And I've written a piece of legislation on that. It has cross-party support, and I'll implement that if elected by Wicklow. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Kellie McConnell, please?
Sure. So People Before Profit stance is that we need an emergency programme led by a state construction company to build thousands of good quality, social and affordable houses. And the obvious solution is the Apple tax money to start this. People try and make this complicated when it's very simple. We need homes. Private companies want to increase their profits. A public construction company's only motive is to provide us with excellent quality, sustainable, environmentally conscious homes. And the prices of the private market will be much fairer because there'll be enough supply. Of course, we would support people's choice to make improvements in their living conditions and do what makes the most sense for them. And we would absolutely introduce a strong use it or lose it tax on vacant and derelict buildings and sites, and use the social housing system they have in Vienna, where everyone can apply.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Edward Timmins?
Council should use their existing land and identify new, cheaper land banks for the purpose of building affordable housing. I've been banging the table about affordable housing for many years now, because it's a few years ago it was obviously a standout issue in our communities and wasn't given enough attention. The councils also need to increase the income limit of people who qualify to buy affordable homes. Sometimes the income limit is very low and it should be raised. And also the subsidy that comes from the state as regards to the affordable housing, that needs to be increased, because with inflation and that, a lot of these limits have not been increased. And also Wicklow County Council should look at setting up a partnership with a number of medium-sized builders to build these new homes. As regards downsizing, the council need to identify and build in town centres for elderly people who want to live near services, and we need to zone land for that purpose. Like recently in Blessington now we have, we're building 10 houses for step down for elderly people. Thank you.
Thank you. And same question to Jennifer Whitmore, please.
So yeah, look at affordability in housing, and indeed provision of social housing is a major issue all across the country and in Wicklow. It is the Social Democrats, what we want to see is a very much a focus on the provision of the affordable and social housing, and we want to see the not-for-profit housing sector actually take a much bigger role in providing that housing. There is a number of entities already, such as Cullen, who can build houses at a much reduced rate because they're not taking the profit out of it. But we want to see them ramp up, and we want to support them by providing early stage finance to enable them to do it. Specifically in relation to the social housing, there's a number of things that need to change for the councils. The councils have like a 2-year wait at the moment as they go through a 4-stage process to build social housing. It's far too long, so we need to get rid of that. We also need to make sure that that the councils are building rather than focusing on these like really lucrative long leases that they're going into at the moment, where at the end of 25 years they don't actually have an asset to show for it. So there's a lot of changes like that that need to be made in relation to social housing.
Thank you. Same question to Shay Cullen, please.
Yes, I suppose the housing construction costs are a huge problem with the increases we're having. Particularly, you know, one area we may have to look at is the VAT that is charged on a new affordable house. But I suppose that the concerns that are there is that we have problems with our planning regulations, we have problems with water services, infrastructure, and a shortage of tradespeople. And that certainly needs to be addressed. I think we have the land through the local authorities, and that should be utilised to actually deliver more homes. But I do feel that we need more apprentices in terms of building, whether that's plumbers or electricians or carpenters or blocklayers. We need to encourage young people to get into those trades, and I think that will help our situation in terms of building homes going into the future.
Thank you. And the same question, please, to Stephen Donnelly.
Thanks, Harriet. We want people to own their own homes, and that means we need to build a lot more homes, and they need to be the right kind of homes. Now, we've gone from building 20,000 a year to 40,000. Fianna Fáil believes we can get to 60,000. There's been a big increase in apprenticeships. We need more of that. We can all see new housing developments being built around Wicklow. In fact, Wicklow is one of the leading countries in terms of new social and new affordable homes. But we have to go further. We have supports in place for first-time buyers. We want to expand that. And critically, what we want is a multi-billion euro investment in the infrastructure that's required. Fully agree with Shay. We need a big investment in water. We need a big investment in power. But it's not just about more homes. They have to be the right kind of homes. So we have to have planning that includes homes to be able to downsize for those with disabilities, for those with mobility impairments. We need homes close to the town and the village centres. We need to make sure they're well insulated, energy efficient, so that the cost of running the home is low.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on again, and this time it's to look at cost of living. And the question that's being asked to all the candidates is, how will you or your party address the cost of living crisis? Will you benchmark state pension and bring in measures for the working poor? So I'm going to ask that question first, please, to Stephen Matthews.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I suppose to address the cost of living crisis, you have to look at what's driving the cost of living. And to me, it's high cost of energy. The cost of energy like we saw that real spike in cost of living when the Ukrainian war broke out, when we had low, when we kind of not enough energy going around Europe, and it really drove everything. It drove transport costs, production costs, construction costs, the food basket every week. It drove all of that. One of the ways long term that we can address cost of living in Ireland, and this is a long term vision, is to be sure we're energy resilient, so we're not dependent on those spikes in fossil fuels or from countries that are volatile or subject to war. And we have to develop our clean, green, offshore renewable energy, our solar energy, and that is the key to bringing stability and resilience to our energy system, which will bring lower the cost of living in everything, in transport and food, etc. In the meantime, because we can't, people are suffering at the moment, we continue those universal and those targeted measures that we've seen in the last 5 budgets, which have been progressive and targeted at people that need it the most.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Kellie McConnell, please?
Thank you very much. So many people in Ireland are really struggling at the minute. So People Before Profit have proposed 5 key measures that we will implement to give working people a break and address this cost of living catastrophe. We would abolish the USC for workers earning less than €100,000 a year. We would cap essential food prices, cut electricity bills by returning ESB to a not-for-profit mandate, and cap energy prices. We would cap mortgage interest rates to 3% and guarantee a living wage of at least €15 an hour for everyone, and a €2 per hour increase for all childcare workers. And we would end poverty rates for pensions and social protection payments. We would raise them to €300 per week immediately, with an additional €50 cost of disability payment for those on disability groups. And we would reduce the pension age to 65.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Edward Timmins, please?
Our party, Fine Gael, has already made huge efforts and done huge things to help with the cost of living crisis. But in the future, my view is that we should and will continue to give energy credits and other financial payments, which we're already doing. We should support incomes in all sectors by ensuring that the minimum wage tracks inflation. Also, the state pension should increase at least in line with inflation. Also, there's a few anomalies in the system I've discovered, like mean tests on savings should be changed, as it's currently unfair to people who have the non-contributory old age pension. And we should also continue, which we've already done, but continue and even more aggressively, reduce income tax to help the working poor. And also, those who work often don't qualify for various benefits. There should be thresholds. The thresholds for support should not be cliff edge like they are at the moment, but should be graduated to allow these low-paid workers avail of these state benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Jennifer Whitmore, please?
Okay, so yeah, look, over the last few years, we've seen people really struggle to meet their costs, and I think it's rent, it's mortgages, it's energy, childcare, so a huge range of measures are needed. And what we've seen from government is the use of these one-off measures that really are just a temporary solution and don't really solve the problems, and they're also very costly. I mean, 100 million was spent putting energy credits on holiday home records. So, they are very wastely. So the Social Democrats, what we will want to see is the index linking of the social welfare benefits, but also things like we will create a public childcare system with a cap at 250 a week on that, and also a €30 cost of disability payment, because, if you're living with a disability, you have it, 365 days a year. It's not just something that you can cover with a once-off payment. So it's recognising those stresses and those difficulties for people. And we would also, in relation to energy, we would roll out free solar panels to people on income supports, but also have a very heavy state subsidy for.
Sorry, Jennifer, the clock got you there. I'm going to ask the same question to Shay Cullen, please.
Yes, I suppose cost of living is a huge problem at the moment. And as some of the contributors have said, energy costs, fuel costs, food costs are certainly driving that very severely. I suppose some of the measures that I would like to see, obviously a living wage for people that are struggling. We definitely need to look at reducing the USC, the childcare benefits and breaks for families. And rather than these once-off payments, I really think that there should be more phased payment for families that are really struggling. And certainly with regards to the means testing of carers, that needs to be abolished. So, we need to look, people are really vulnerable and struggling at the moment, and targeted measures for different sectors are what we need to look at.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Thanks, Harriet. Yeah, look, people are feeling a huge amount of pressure in terms of the rising costs, food, energy, and others. In healthcare, we've really looked to bring down the costs for people. We've a lot more free GP care. We've brought in free IVF, free contraception. We're bringing in free HRT. We've eliminated hospital charges, reduced monthly payments for medicines. The recent budget has had some very important short-term measures, be it electricity credits, fuel allowance, living alone allowance, additional child payments. But we have to go a lot further with permanent measures. Some of the things Fianna Fáil wants to see enacted in the next Dáil term is a reduction in childcare fees to €200 per month, which I know would be a game changer for a lot of parents. We want to phase out the means test for the carers allowance. Energy prices are high. We want to keep the 9%, that lower VAT rate on electricity bills, save about €200 a year. And critically, we want to increase the state pension to at least €350 a week.
Thank you very much. And lastly, could I ask the same question to Ciaran Hogan, please?
Okay, there's a lot in this one. So Aontú want to reduce the recent tax hikes on fuel, which have come in and have proven not only to not reduce the carbon emissions, but just to steal more money from common man in many, many different ways. As a business owner myself, I have had to raise my prices just to fight off the inflation, and I've felt the pinch of people having less disposable income. So this is something that we're going to have to attack from many different angles. One very important thing we should have done in the last budget was to bring the VAT down to 9% on hospitality. That will save a lot of businesses from going under right now, and so they can provide without raising their prices. There's a lot of different ways that we can tackle this, and I don't think I have time in a minute. I'm watching the clock. But definitely by being efficient, we don't have to be spending so much money. By taking out a lot of the regulation in childcare, or the regulation, the bureaucracy and the steps each childcare place has to go through, we can help them reduce their costs.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on again, and this time we're going to look at transport. And I think there is some background to this in terms of the background to the question, which was circulated to the candidates, but the question is around Wicklow and North Wexford being primarily commuting areas. What will you and your party do to ensure access to adequate, connected and reliable public transport services, and to reduce the congestion on the country's road networks? Okay, I'm going to ask that question first, please, to Kellie McConnell.
I'm glad I'm going first on this one because I grew up in rural Tyrone and I hate driving. So regular public transport is a necessity that will help all sectors of society, including businesses and hospitality. There are 100 cities around the world that have free, frequent, reliable and comprehensive public transport. And in our fully costed alternative budget, we will provide free school bus funding, provide additional investment in the Safe Routes to School scheme, invest in additional bus services, including purchasing electric buses, and we will double the investment in public transport infrastructure. We would abolish all the fares on public transportation services and publicly contracted commercial services, and abolish the parking charges at park and rides. It's all costed. We can do this. Just needs the political will.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, this is probably the main issue that comes up in Wicklow at the moment. Clearly, we need to invest more in public transport. I mean, specific things we need to do: increase the number of carriages, for example, on trains going from Wicklow town. It's crazy that half the people are standing on the 4 carriages. Increase the numbers of buses and trains going from Wicklow again, or going from Blessington to Dublin, the number of 65 buses. Allow bank card or phone to be used to pay for tickets. It's amazing to think that you need a leap card to pay for everything automatically, and you can't use a bank card. I've raised this issue with Dublin Bus and with the NTA. Also invest in the 2 main arteries of the county, the N11 and N81. Both need to be upgraded. Buses are our main mode of public transport and they use our roads. Also move on a proposal I had, a development plan that's in the Wicklow County Development Plan to extend the Lewis to Blessington from Saggart, and also expedite the Dart extension to Wicklow, which I think is believed to be planned for 5 years. Also, lastly, increase employment in Wicklow that people don't have to, so engage with the IDA so people don't have to.
Thank you. And same question to Jennifer Whitmore, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is probably the biggest issue that's coming up for me as well. I think just as a commuter county, we haven't seen enough investment in basic provision of public services. So people need to have public transport that is affordable, that it's reliable. It needs to show up when you need it, and we haven't seen that to date. And I think, there are some good plans out there. So, the Dart to Wicklow town, that will be really, really good when it happens, but that's 4 or 5 years away at this stage. And I think we just need to get the basics right when it comes to public transport. Put on more buses. There isn't a single bus between Wicklow town and Greystones where the Dart begins, which is just crazy. Get buses that actually will bring people to hospitals, to universities. You make sure it's the carriages are there on the train. So it's the simple things often that are being overlooked, and I think that's where the investment needs to go, because the grand plans are really good and it'll be fantastic when they happen, but there will be a period, a lead-in period for that, and people in Wicklow need public transport now. So look, I do want to say, actually, I actually have to leave because I've a media commitment. So I just want to say thank you so much. I will send out my answers to the other questions because I haven't been able to stay for the whole thing. But I just wish everyone best of luck in the election. It's a very stressful time. So good luck, everyone. And thank you to the PPN for organising tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, I'm going to stick with the same question, and I'm going to ask that to Shay Cullen now.
Yeah, I suppose the public are fed up of false promises on transport. It's the single biggest issue that faces this county, and we need investment into transport. In particular, our N11 and N81 are 2 main arteries in and out of this county. And I will be calling for both of these roads to be upgraded in the programme for government. I think it's essential. I think we cannot continue to build houses and expect people to be sitting in traffic for a couple of hours to try and get to work. It's just not feasible to continue. Obviously, we need reliable public transport. We need to increase our bus services. We need to increase, we need to try and get the Dart to Wicklow. I think that's an essential. In terms of the park and rides that are being suggested for the N11, I think they won't work unless we do a total upgrade of the N11. And I think that is part of the issue that we have. I welcome the park and ride, but we need a total upgrade of the N11 going forward.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Thanks very much. The congestion has to be tackled very clearly, and road safety has to be tackled. On the East Coast, we need the bus corridor, the dedicated bus corridor on the N11. I've been working closely with the team in Wicklow County Council on that, and we now have an agreed design junction by junction, and there's money has been allocated to move that forward into detailed design. We need the Dart to Wicklow, to Kilcool and to Wicklow Town. And we need more high-frequency buses, and we need more bus routes than we currently have. West Wicklow needs a major investment on the N81. It's not safe. It's not fit for purpose as a road. It needs a complete overhaul. It also needs supporting works in Blessington and in Baltinglass. And for West Wicklow, we have to have a higher frequency bus service as well. There is a bus service there. We need far more of those buses. They need to be more reliable than they are. So higher speed, direct buses on both sides of the county.
Thank you. I know that Ciaran Hogan's had to drop out for a minute, hopes to rejoin us, but I'm going to move on and ask Stephen Matthews, please, to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. As somebody who worked in transport for 30 years, a lot of big railway engineering projects, I know there was no investment in public transport for a long, long time. Steady state, no ambition, just go along as you are. We've completely changed that in the last 4 or 5 years. Now, you can't just pull the lever and expect all public transport services to ramp up. But what we have seen is 4 or 5 new Connecting Ireland rural bus routes through Wicklow. Ridership is up 750%. We've 2 new buses coming up from Wicklow, the 133 and the 131. We have Bus Connects starting, 24-hour bus service to Bray starting soon. We've round the town buses now commencing for Greystones and Bray, and one soon to start for Wicklow. And the Dart to Wicklow Town and Kilcool, I'll deliver that over 3 years. The NTA are wrong to say 5 years. They don't have heavy rail experience like I do, and I will deliver that for Wicklow and Kilcool, and we will invest 10 billion in public transport in the lifetime of the next government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on again, and it's a change this time into health services, and specifically services for children with autism. So the question here is, how will you or your party support the families of children with autistic spectrum disorders while on waiting lists? Early intervention is key for young children on the spectrum. However, these children are on increasingly long waiting lists for assessment of needs, primary care, and also the Children's Disability Network team list. Okay, and I'm going to start by asking that question to Edward Timmins, please.
Yeah, thanks. Like, this is a really difficult topic and comes up again a lot on the doorsteps. Like, the government is investing and has invested hugely in this area, but clearly more needs to be done. Like, with our population increases and the increased demand in these services, unfortunately, we haven't been able to just switch on the tap and deal with this issue as adequately as we should. But it is, I believe, improving now, and there is a lot of investment. There's huge awareness. Our health strategy does cover this and does take it very seriously. And we are trying to increase resources, staff, and I'm hopeful that this in the next government will be improved considerably, and those wait times will continue to reduce. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jennifer has left us, so I'm going to move on and ask that same question to Shay Cullen, please.
Thank you. Yes, look, children with complex needs are really suffering and spending a lot of their childhood years on waiting lists, and that is not acceptable. The situation is actually getting worse in terms of vacant posts to look after this. I think it's gone from 28% to 36% last year. And I mean, it's a national scandal that we don't have a service that works for our children, and have to spend up to 4 years on waiting lists for interventions. Those children are struggling at home, their families are struggling, they need therapies. The same children are also struggling in school because they don't have the services that they deserve. So this is, I think one of the contributors said it's getting better. It's actually getting worse, this is. And I think we really have to grasp this in terms of looking after children that are vulnerable and that need supports. And that it has to be a priority for the next government.
Thank you. Can I ask that question to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Thanks, Harriet. The reality is the current approach to children's disability services in Ireland hasn't worked. The waiting times are simply too long for far too many children. There's a few things we can do and we must do in the next government. First of all, we have to trust our therapists to do the right assessment for each child. There's a court ruling on a particular type of assessment for every child that has taken the decision-making away from our therapists. We have to change the law to trust our healthcare workers. We have to reinstate therapists in our special schools, and we have to move radically to reinstate therapies in our special classes in our mainstream schools. We need to recruit a lot more therapists. The funding is there. The job doesn't work for them. I've spoken to a lot of them about the changes that they need in that job. We've increased the number of college places. We want to go further with that as well, and we want to make sure that the families as well as the children get all of the supports that they need.
Thank you. Can I ask that question to Stephen Matthews, please?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's probably a simple answer, but it is to hire more therapists, hire more professionals, hire more people in that area. I mean, that is what is creating the waiting lists, and it's not that's the solution to it, but it's not as simple as that, because we do know that there's I accept what Stephen says, that the funding is there for it, but it's the salary that comes with that work then as well often doesn't cover. And most of the places that we have the pressure points, or where we have the delays, it's within the Greater Dublin area, because the high cost of living and the high cost of rent there. And this goes across teachers and nurses and Gardaí and local authority staff, engineers. It's across the spectrum there, where there's this expensive place to live. We're short of staff to do many of those jobs. And really, I think something that needs to be looked at is a sort of a Dublin allowance for people where they're living in those areas that are highly expensive, to try and fill those posts, because there's nothing more stressful and worrying for a parent than waiting for the right assessment for their child and care for their child.
Thank you. And can I ask that question to Kellie McConnell, please?
Thank you. This one is also very close to my heart, because I was diagnosed as neurodivergent as an adult only last year, twice. And I feel so lucky to finally know how to support myself. So people before profit, this is a serious priority, with a 2% tax on people with a wealth of over 4.7 million. We would raise over 8 billion euros annually, and we would reduce pupil to teacher ratios to 15:1 in primary and post-primary schools. We would increase the number of special needs assistants, increase the number of special education teachers, psychologists, and we would invest in the Equal Start model to support children who experience disadvantage, and invest in DEIS schools. We need more staff, and the current system is feeling that exactly they don't have anywhere to live here in Wicklow.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to shift our attention again and we're thinking about climate change and environment. And the question this time is, what will you or your party do to ensure that climate change, biodiversity loss and environmental sustainability is at the heart of joined up government policy, while ensuring that climate action doesn't exacerbate existing poverty and inequality in our country? And I'm going to ask that question first, please, to Shay Cullen. Have we lost?
Shay seems to have just dropped off the line.
Okay.
I haven't had a message yet.
He might be trying to rejoin us.
Yeah.
So, can I take that question to Stephen Donnelly then, please?
Yeah, thanks, Harriet. Climate, I can tell you, for the last 4.5 years has been front and centre for this government. We know that there's a long way to go, but we have very ambitious targets, and last year was a record year in terms of lowering carbon footprint, and we really have to keep going with that. I want to focus just on one measure, which will be very important to a lot of people in Wicklow, which is around retrofitting. It addresses cost of living. It also addresses a carbon footprint from every house. We want to make retrofitting a reality for every home in Ireland. There's been about 10,000 retrofits done by the local authorities so far, which is very good. What we would like to do in the next Dáil term is to increase affordability for retrofitting, particularly for lower and middle income families, scale up the budgets for the local authorities, prioritise the least energy efficient homes and buildings first. There are a lot of other measures as well, but it's just one very practical measure in terms of reducing Ireland and Wicklow's carbon footprint.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Stephen Matthews, please?
Thank you. It's the reason I'm sitting here. It's the reason I got involved in politics. It's the reason that I push and work so hard every single day. And it's the reason I was willing to go into government, because it's only when you're willing to go into government you can make these changes. And you've got to be brave, and you've got to push, and you've got to work with your coalition partners as well. I think we've done quite well we did almost hit that 7% reduction target this year in carbon emissions. In the first quarter of this year, it's around 2.2%. That doesn't directly correlate to an 8% cut, but we are on the right path. And sometimes work on climate action can seem a little bit disconnected. It means improving public transport. It means giving people better ways to get around their towns. It means working on renewable, clean, green, renewable energies, putting those free solar panels on schools. We want to put free solar panels on low-income family households, and working with farmers with agriculture. And I think farming and energy are doing their bit. Transport is the hardest nut to crack. We always knew it would be, and we have huge difficulty in trying to cut transport emissions.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Kellie McConnell?
People before profit have been pushing for real climate action for years, not just tinkering around the edges. This burden can't be on us as individuals. The big polluters have to do the work. Massive cuts to emissions are possible while making our lives better. So we would invest 5 billion in renewable energy as the first step to phase out fossil fuels. We would not have LNGs in Ireland, like the Green Party have allowed. We would abolish all public transportation fares. We would invest 1 billion in retrofitting high energy usage households. And we would also work with farmers. Farmers are the backbone of our country, and many of them are living on poverty wages. We would cap dairy herds at 200 cows, but we would compensate them, and we would introduce a farming biodiversity payment.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, there's already a huge amount of work being done in this, as Stephen says. Like 40% of our electricity demand in 2023 was met by renewables. And since 2015, over 200,000 property upgrades have completed with the help of SCAI. And Stephen refers to the greenhouse gas emissions. They've come down by 6.8% in 2003. And amazingly, the greenhouse gas emissions figure is at the same level or actually below 1990 levels. I don't think that's widely acknowledged. So there have been huge achievements. And lastly, which an area which I'm familiar with because I've worked with companies in this space, is solar. Like every day, 100 domestic premises are being roofed with solar panels. Last year, we eliminated VAT on domestic solar panels, and also there's a very generous grant available, and that grant has been extended to commercial premises as well. And we also ended the need for planning permission for commercial premises. So there has been huge work done there.
Thank you. I'm going to move on again, this time to a question in relation to equality. And the question is, how will you or your party support people with disabilities and their families to get the services that they are entitled to, and to ensure that the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities is complied with at a local community level? And I'd like to ask that first, if I can, please, to Ciaran Hogan.
Okay, apologies for the absence there. Firstly, Aontú believes that the first discrimination against people with disabilities is the high abortion rate that they suffer. We don't want to be a country like Iceland, where 99% of all people with disabilities are aborted and never given the chance to life. That sends a terrible message to those people that their life is not worthy, their life is not equal. We have to put them, and we have to put all of ourselves on a mindset that everyone's life is equal first. Once we do that, we can start to make sure that they do have the services, the communities around them to allow them to live as full lives as we possibly can manage. Sorry, there was one more bit to the question. Could you re-ask that?
In relation to making sure that you can get the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities complied with at a local community level.
Again, at a local level, this would be the small local groups who would be engaging with them, volunteer groups who have already said we'll be very engaged with and very supportive of as well. I think that's my time, is it?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, the same question, please, to Stephen Matthews.
Yeah, thank you. This is something that comes up on the doors all the time, and it has done over the last couple of years. And I've really learned a lot from meeting people on the doors. And it's one of the values of canvassing, not just at election time. And we would introduce a non-means tested basic income for carers, and we would introduce a €50 disability payment per week for carers. We would support independence among people with a disability by increasing the number of personal assistance hours by 300,000 per year, and we'd support approved housing bodies and the local authorities, because one of the areas that we see that there's not enough provision of housing is for housing for people with disabilities, and it brings that independence that's often lacking. In transport as well, by improving the walkability and the cyclability and the safety of our towns and walking routes, I think it really improves that accessibility for people with disabilities to enjoy their towns and the independence of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask the same question to Kellie McConnell, please?
Thanks. The resources exist in our society to provide care for all of our children and those with special care needs and disabilities. A Caring Ireland is possible, and people with special care needs should be supported by the state to live independently if they wish. So we will invest 2 billion in disability services and supports, including increasing the disability-related social welfare payment to €350 per week. And we would abolish the means test for carers allowance and pay carers a living wage of €15 an hour. The country would fall apart without carers, and we need to respect them and make sure that they are looked after so that they can continue helping keep everybody in our society safe in a dignified way.
Thank you. Can I ask that question also to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, like there is action being taken. Like we've launched the Action Plan for Disability Service 2024 to 2026 to cover the next 3 years. And this plan aims to increase the capacity in and access to disability services. And it's a very, very detailed plan. Like the main kind of areas of it are 3 main areas: providing better access, maximizing impact of service delivery, and improve planning and management through better information and systems. Like in particular, I just quote a couple of facts from it. For children's disability, is going to be an extra 600 staff will be hired to support early intervention. For adult multidisciplinary therapies, over 200 new posts will be added to provide specialist therapy services and expand neuro rehabilitation networks. So there is a detailed plan that is being implemented at the moment, and that will prove to be very successful, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I lastly ask that to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Yeah, thanks. Look, our goal, it has to be that everyone can live their lives to the fullest extent, whatever disability a person may or may not have. We've already talked about the overhaul that's needed for children's disability services. And there's a lot more we need for people living with disabilities to be able to live a full life. We need better urban planning. I was canvassing in Brady the other day and going through with a gentleman who's mobility impaired, some of the basic things that are getting in his way and in people's ways in our towns and in our villages. We have to have proper urban planning that takes account of this. We have to have more appropriate planning. It can't, or housing rather, it can't be just developer led. We need more homes that are appropriate for people with disabilities, additional funding into the local authorities. Fianna Fáil would phase out the carers means test. I would like to see a heavy investment in the next 5 years in rehab services, people with disabilities, including neuro disabilities.
Thank you. We're going to shift attention again now, please, and we're going to consider social inclusion. And the question here is, how would you or your party stand up against racism and discrimination as a politician? What policies will you be supporting to create an empowered and inclusive voice for all in our community, ensuring that our communities are safe and secure for everyone, including refugees and asylum seekers? And if I could ask that question first, please, to Stephen Matthews.
Thank you. Well, every day I would stand up for people to come to this country, either for work or because they're fleeing war or persecution, and try and give them that safe haven. And many people come here to work. Our economy wouldn't operate actually without immigration. It's a good thing. We're short of so many bus drivers, people in construction, people in healthcare. We're just talking about trying to recruit more staff in very many areas. And it's because we're a booming economy. It's because we're a place that people want to come to. It's because of the good work that's been done in the last couple of years that people want to come here. It's a safe place. It's stable, a stable place to come and live. And I've seen some of the most appalling online absolute rubbish and misinformation that spreads like wildfire on online chats and forums and WhatsApp groups. And every one of us needs to stand up and cut it out and speak up for it and say, this is not acceptable. And don't join in it. Don't ignore it. Speak up and stand up, because that's what we are. We stand together.
Thank you. Can I ask Kellie McConnell the same question, please?
So I'm one of the founding members of United Against Racism Wicklow and North Wicklow Against Genocide. And I'm an active member of Sanctuary Runners and Newtown Together. We obviously need these initiatives, but this is another one of the issues where we can make it complicated, but it's really simple. We need to tackle systemic racism by tackling the wealth inequality in Ireland. We are a wealthy country. We also have serious poverty. We have the means to address that, and we have to. People who migrate here are essential, as Stephen's just said. What we're seeing is the real life consequences of the meme with the refugee with no cookies and the worker with one cookie. And the banker is telling the worker to watch out, that refugee wants to steal your cookie, while the banker sits on hundreds of cookies he's never going to need and could never eat. We have to look up for the strangers, not down.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Edward Timmins, please?
I think the most important tool to deal with racism is that we have open discussion on the issue. And we shouldn't brush it under the carpet like I think we have in a lot of media circles over the last few years. I think we need to bring it out and discuss it, because this will allow the true facts to be put out there and rebut all the false narratives that are there, because people believe rumour when things are not discussed openly and factually. And that's the risk, and it allows extremists from both ends come in and steal the show, so to speak. This would reduce racism and discrimination. Also, politicians themselves need to be very careful the language they choose, because they have a responsibility to, people listen to politicians, and we are in a very responsible position. So we have to be very, very careful the language we choose and not to incite any hatred. And we've all seen that language that I'm talking about. Also, though, communities need to be consulted before large-scale groups of migrants move into them. And we need to just give people more information, and we must have a strategy especially for small towns and villages.
Thank you. And can I ask the same question to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Thanks. Well, I want to start with our healthcare workers. I've made this point repeatedly in the Dáil. I've been appalled by some of the racist attacks. I spoke to our healthcare workers after the riots in Dublin. We had doctors, nurses, health and social care professionals from around the world working in our Dublin hospitals, treating some of the people who were involved in those riots, who were scared to walk down O'Connell Street. Our healthcare service relies on international workers, and as I have said many times before, they will always be welcome here, and we are damn lucky to have them. There are others that we are bringing here. We're in the middle, for example, of bringing some injured children from Gaza for healthcare. So we've got to be strong, and as political representatives, we have to be very clear that we are an open and tolerant society.
Thank you. And could I ask that question lastly to Ciaran Hogan, please?
Firstly, my wife is non-Irish, and my two children were there before be mixed race, so I take this issue very personally. Of course, we can't allow racism or hate in our community, and the way to tackle that is not by top-down legislation that will drive it underground. The way I see it is by fostering integration. We have to be able to communicate with all the communities, with everyone coming in, and to find common ground. I'm one of the few, if the only, candidates who can speak in the native language of many of the Ukrainians. And so I've been able to talk to them, and I talk to them regularly about their fears, about their perceptions, about how the Irish people are treating them. And they tell me honestly that they do feel a little bit isolated. They don't have any pathways to integrate. There is no integration. It is there, but it's not to the level that would be sufficient. And they are becoming small enclaves unto themselves. Now, this is a problem that we can't have, because having two separate cultures living side by side with no overlap will foster hate, will foster resentment.
Thank you, Ciaran. Okay, and thank you for your answers on that subject. We're going to come now to a question that's specific to this constituency, and I will give the question its full length so people can see the background to it. Question is, if elected as a TD for Wicklow, what actions will you take to support and deliver the development of a multi-use sports facility, including a swimming pool for West Wicklow? And the background to this question is expressed in the fact that at least at the last general election, promises were made and support was pledged regarding the development of a swimming pool and multi-use sports facility in West Wicklow. Almost 5 years later, we're still waiting for a permanent swimming pool. Our sports clubs are still waiting for land for football and rugby pitches, basketball courts, and a running track. Our community has stepped up again and again. Committees made up of volunteers have worked with national governing bodies on projects such as Swim Ireland to bring a pop-up pool to West Wicklow, and the FAI to help promote and encourage participation in sport for children and adults of all ages. So the question again is, if elected as a TD for Wicklow, what actions will you take to support the delivery support and deliver the development of a multi-use sports facility, including a swimming pool for West Wicklow? Okay, I'm going to ask that question in the first place to Kellie McConnell, please.
So we all know sport is essential for our bodies, our minds, and our sense of belonging. So we would make sure that the needs of the people are prioritised over profits. As someone who grew up in rural Ireland, West Wicklow would be a top priority. People before profit want to put the power of these decision-making processes back into local communities. In our fully costed alternative budget, we propose to increase funding by 50% for sports and recreation projects and services, and we would actively work with programme providers such as Sport Ireland and Sport Capital and Equipment Programme to distribute additional funding to sporting areas that need it the most. And West Wicklow needs it, they want it, let's make it happen.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question please to Edward Timmins?
Yeah, as a resident of West Wicklow, and a public rep for West Wicklow County Councillor, I'm very familiar with the issues faced in this area. We are the one area of the county that does not have a public swimming pool, so that is certainly needed. As a councillor, I succeeded in getting the recent development plan an area zoned for a sports centre, a multi-use sports centre in West Wicklow. Also at this stage, I'm working and lobbying developers that are building houses in Blessington, and they are given 28 acres over to the community. And I'm very hopeful that a lot of that land will be used for public facilities. There's a park which is already partly built, and also provide playing pitches and other facilities, including a possible swimming pool for the people of Blessington. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Harriet. Can I just start by saying there has been a record investment in sports and in sports clubs in Wicklow over the last 4.5 years, and it's something that we have to keep going with. We've also had some very important reversals as in sports capital grants that were refused, that we've managed to have them turned around. And we're talking about West Wicklow. Blessington FC was one of them that I was delighted to work with the club. Here where I am in Kilcool, St. Anthony's, we got that turned around, and there was a refusal in Newtown as well, which simply couldn't stand, and we had that turned around as well. We want to keep going with the sports capital grants, but I think we need major multi-use community sporting facilities in a few different areas. Wicklow Town, for example, doesn't have one. It needs one. And we need to keep going with the Bray Sports Campus on the old Fassaro site. And then for West Wicklow, for the Blessington area, serving Baltinglass as well, we do need this multi-purpose community-based facility.
Thank you. Can I ask the same question to Ciaran Hogan, please?
Yeah. Let's just take a look at some of the projects around that have been left idle over the last 5 years. So there is the pool for West Wicklow. There's also the Bray Greystones Walk. There's also the Victorian benches on the Bray seafront. And I'm sure there's many others around the county that have been left dawdling since the last general election. I'm coming from a business background, and in that you have to get things done on time and under budget. As my party leader said, Simon Harris wouldn't survive in the private sector. He'd be fired a long time ago. So I believe I can get these things done. And I definitely want to see more development in Wicklow. I want to see it become more self-sufficient and less reliant on commuting to Dublin, which I do myself. So in a very short to wrap up, I will have this pool done within the first year. If I have to go and dig the foundations myself by hand, I think that can be done.
Thank you. And can I ask that question also to Stephen Matthews, please?
Do I have to, seeing as Ciaran's going to build it in a year? So there was an application for it, and it wasn't a very good application. It was quite poor, actually, and it scored pretty badly. And it was under the large-scale sports infrastructure fund. And what really needs to be done, the practicalities of this are to ensure that Wicklow County Council puts in a proper application, is really committed to it. I didn't sense commitment to it. I sensed everybody saying this is a great idea, but I didn't sense that real commitment that's required to get a big project like that over the line. It will face a lot of competition. We have seen record investment in sports infrastructure across Wicklow and across Ireland in the last 4 or 5 years under Minister Catherine Martin in the sports capital grants. Lots of clubs across Wicklow have done really, really well. But I think these large size multi-sports, I wouldn't isolate it into a pool for West Wicklow. I would say this has to be multi-use. You get the most return for that. You get the most benefit for your investment there. And that's the way to do it.
Thank you. Okay, we are making very good headway with our questions. So I am delighted to move us on again to look at a different topic. And this time the question is, if you were elected, when will you commit to delivering addiction and recovery services, at least at pre-COVID levels? Okay, and I'm going to ask that question first, please, to Edward Timmins.
I mean, obviously it will be part of the new government, be a party decision, but I don't see any earthly reason why that shouldn't be achieved and even exceed the pre-COVID levels of service. That's what would be my intention and what I would be saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask that question then to Stephen Donnelly, please?
Thanks, Harriet. I have to say I've been very involved in addiction services here in Wicklow. One of our groups, Tiglin, I worked very closely with them to secure a few different facilities, two of them in Greystones, one for men and one for women. They're an extraordinary group. We have been putting in more money. I've met with the drugs task force. We've helped them with some of the issues that they've raised. But essentially, we have to keep going. There has been additional funding, as Edward has said. There has been additional funding going into addiction services. We need to go further, but both in terms of prevention, as well as addiction, and as well as rehabilitation as well. It's a very important focus. And Wicklow actually has a very good story to tell in terms of the addiction services we have here. And Harriet, sorry, just so that you're aware, I could go at 9:30. I have another commitment, so if that's the last contribution, apologies, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move along and ask that same question, please, to Ciaran Hogan. No, okay. In that case, could I ask Stephen Matthews, would you be able to?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I would just acknowledge the work that Stephen Donnelly has actually done with Tignin, and it's been quite impressive, and it's a very good model for that kind of when you come through the treatment and follow on out back into kind of living without that support. But it is actually, it's one of those key things. It feeds into homelessness. It feeds into a lot of other aspects of life as well, addiction, and not having that level of service there, not having the wraparound services that are required for everybody. So in committing to the question, I think, is when would you commit to delivering those services? As soon as is absolutely possible, because I do see the benefits of it, and it's not something that any of us is holding back on delivering those services for any particular reason at all, and they just need to be delivered as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. And Kellie McConnell, please, can I ask you the same question?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, immediately, given the chance, we would immediately reinstate the funding that has been cut across many sectors. The funding we need for our communities. We favour a radical and harm reduction approach to drug consumption and education rather than criminalisation. We will provide more education on drugs. We want support for communities affected by drugs. And there has been a scandalous underfunding of our local drug and alcohol task forces, which involve many of those on the front line assisting people with drug abuse. So we will expand the medicinal cannabis access program, and we would move towards a strategy of decriminalisation, which has worked in Portugal.
Thank you very much. I'm now completely thrown by people coming and going, so I apologise. I think that's us having finished that question, and I'd like then to just shift in terms of the last of our significant questions to the economy, and the question here relates to how your party will support the hospitality sector. So I'm wondering if Kirwan can hear me and come back in. No. Okay, then I'm going to ask that question, please, to Stephen Matthews.
Thank you. They're really struggling out there. I've spoken to it. This is primarily around hospitality services, is it? Yeah. Yeah, look, I've spoken to them out there. I've met so many of those groups. They are struggling with many aspects, and running a small business is really difficult. You know, you want to concentrate on the work that you do, but you've got so much administration and so much to deal with. It's really hard to work for yourself. I think one of the ways we can help those smaller businesses is with their energy costs, and giving them really targeted grants towards energy costs, while at the same time supporting them to improve the energy efficiency of the buildings, whether that's the heating or the lighting or the power or whatever it might be. I know that many businesses have said to me that it's the minimum wage is causing us a bit of difficulty at the moment. I actually agree with that minimum wage increase and would like to increase it further, but I do recognise that is challenging for business owners as well. But I think we can find that balance there, because we need to pay people well, and I mean, people need to take home a wage packet no matter what job they're doing. So I think in energy and wage supports will be the areas I would look to assist them.
Thank you. And can I ask Kellie McConnell on the same question, please?
Yeah, another pretty simple one. We would pay workers and address the cost of living crisis. It's the cost of living is the real culprit here. People don't have much additional money to spend on leisure and recreational and hospitality sectors. When people have no disposable income, the hospitality sector is decimated. When people have their basic needs met, they have energy to enjoy leisure activities and our amazing restaurants and fabulous Irish culture. So Crucially, people before profit want to return Ireland's resources to our citizens. If we nationalise our ESB and waste services, it'll bring down costs for everyone, including the hospitality sector, and with lots of willing customers with high disposable incomes, then things should improve really well.
Thank you. And can I ask that question also to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this problem. I mean, as an accountant and a financial advisor, I deal with small businesses all the time. And only the other day, I was dealing with a business that's a restaurant come bar, and I really understand the huge challenges they face. Like Gael wanted to reduce the VAT rate in the recent budget, but they now actually are going to hopefully reduce the VAT rate to 11% on hospitality. There's also a €4,000 energy credit available to small businesses, so that should help them. And we're also looking at bringing in a PRSI rebate to again reduce employers' costs. But it is really challenging, and restaurants and hospitality, they really work so hard. It's a full-on, really difficult business, and we really need to support them. They also support our tourism industry. Like I know, relatively remote parts of West Wicklow where there are, small businesses, restaurants, coffee shops, and we need them alive to promote our tourism and foster the growth in tourism in our county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, just to shake things up a little bit as we come towards the end of this session, we're going to what we're calling quick fire questions. So these are just short questions, and to those of you who are hardy enough to be here with us still, I'm going to ask them, and people will get just 30 seconds to give us a very quick answer. And so I'm going to start with the first one of these questions, which is, will you support calls to introduce a bill to extend people's rights to access the countryside? I'm going to start by asking that to Kellie McConnell, please.
Is it 30 seconds? Yes,
Yeah.
Great. Yes, our beautiful country should not be something that we auction off to the highest bidder. We have amazing natural resources, and they should be in public ownership like they were when we had the commons. So yes.
Thank you. And can I ask that question to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not that simple, because a lot of our sites and places people want to go pass over farmland and land that's actively farmed with animals or crops. And I'd be loath to support a blanket access to the countryside without proper consultation with landowners, because I've heard so many horrific stories of problems landowners have experienced, including being sued by people who have accidents on it, or dogs let loose that cause problems to animals. So I think we have to be very, very careful about this.
Thank you. Ciaran, I'm going to ask you this. We're doing quick fire questions, so you've just got 30 seconds. And the question is, will you support calls to introduce a bill to extend people's rights to access into the countryside?
Yes, as Edward Timmins there said, I think we do have to be very careful, because a right to the countryside means a right to someone's property, someone's business, effectively. We need to make sure that, all of the beautiful places that we do have in public ownership here are accessible. We have to have good transport links. We have to have even tourist offices, kind of for international and Irish-based tourists who are able and allowed and encouraged to come to Wicklow to see our natural beauty, to stay here, to invest or give their tourism money. But we can't say that that is a blanket term to allow.
Thank you. And I'm going to lastly ask that question to Stephen Matthews, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, of course I support people's rights to access the countryside. We live in a beautiful county, and why shouldn't people have rights to access lakes and mountains and rivers and places we've had cultural and heritage connection all of our lives and intergenerationally? The two previous speakers are correct. there is private landowner issues out there. It's incredibly complex, and there have been several bills written, one by the Green Party and one by the Labour Party previously, and they were complex and very, very difficult, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't give up and find and strike that right balance to give people access and protect people's rights.
Thank you very much. Okay, another of these quick questions, and this time it is, will your party agree in this Dáil term to a United Ireland vote? And I'm going to ask that question first to Edward Timmins, please.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I can't give you a direct answer on that. I think we'd have to discuss it. I think we have to be very careful about this. And I think if anything to do with a United Ireland needs to be done by total consensus with the minority in the north. So I just think we have to be very careful about just making blanket statements about doing things. If United Ireland is to happen, it should be done totally by consent, and we'd need to put that well in place before we even consider such a referendum.
Thank you. And same question to Ciaran Hogan, please.
Yes, Aontú is a 32 county Republican movement, so we do want Ireland to be united. As it was said before me, we do have to be careful, because what I don't want is to push it through before it's ready. We could see a return to the worst of the troubles if we're doing it ham-fisted, if we're doing it when it's not right. What I want to see is that the vast majority of people in Northern Ireland and in the Republic are happy with this situation and are advocating for it as well. So everyone can be a win-win situation, and that can happen.
Thank you. Stephen Matthews.
I think we need to be very, very clear with people what exactly it is that they would be voting for, both people in the south and people in the north. And it's not clear, certainly not clear to me what we would be voting for. It needs to be carefully teased out, and people need to be really sure. You could end up losing it. I think many of us aspire to a united Ireland, and probably that's what we all ultimately want. But we need to do it carefully and consideration. And when you only look across the water at Brexit and the disaster that was, you don't want it to end up in that situation with the united Ireland.
Thank you. And can I lastly ask that question to Kellie McConnell, please?
Thank you. Yes, as someone who grew up in the 6 counties, I'm in People Before Profit because it is a 32 county party, and the question is a vote. So we would be asking the people if we are ready, and given the incredible difficulties with Brexit, this is time. So we do, have to ask people.
Thank you. Okay, there is another of these quick questions, and this time what I'm asking the candidates is, what are you doing in your own life to help reduce your carbon footprint or your climate impact? And can I ask that first, please, to Ciaran Hogan?
Okay. At the very moment, I have solar panels, and even though we haven't had a great November, I know that I've already generated about 38 kilowatts of power, which is 52% up from last year. So I was looking at it, and I'm very happy with those numbers. I'm also driving a fully electric car, which I think is the way forward. We do have to build out the infrastructure for that. And what else? I've been a almost lifelong vegetarian, so I'm advocating for better management of our food and our animals as well on farms.
Thank you very much. Can I ask that question to Stephen Matthews, please?
Thanks very much. I've only flown once in the last 10 years. I like to try and holiday at home as much as possible. I have reduced my red meat intake. I try to cycle or walk or take public transport as much as possible. And I don't ever get judgmental about these things, because we all each have to play our part in it, and we can't be pointing the finger at one group and one or the other and saying you should be doing more. I just think small little interventions like that will really help.
Thank you very much. Kellie McConnell, can I ask you the same question?
Thanks. This is a climate catastrophe. We need urgent action. So I do everything I can, and it's not in a judgmental way, but from the position of privilege that we are here in Ireland, we can do a lot. So I've only had 50 election posters. I'm vegan. I use public transport when it's feasible. I buy everything that I can secondhand on adverts. And the biggest thing that we can do is campaign to stop the genocide in Palestine, because that is contributing severe fossil fuel wastage in a horrific way.
Thank you. And can I ask that question lastly to Edward Timmins, please?
Yeah, because I live in rural West Wicklow, unfortunately I can't avail of public transport for any of the places I need to go for work. In my professional capacity, for the last couple of years, I've worked with a solar panel installing company. I give them financial advice, and I also involved in their strategy of expansion, and have helped them expand their rollout of solar panels, in particular to commercial premises. So I'm working with a company that is rolling out large scale solar panels.
Thank you. And our last question this evening, but a pretty important one, I think you'll all agree. How can we engage with TDs outside of the election period? And I'm going to ask that question in the first place to Stephen Matthews, please.
Quite easily, really. I've been knocking on doors since COVID restrictions were taken away. So about 3 years knocking on doors across all of Wicklow, like from Kiltegan right across to Wicklow, from Arklow up to Bray. And I've had really good engagement with people, or people would ring me or call me or email me, and it's not just at election time. We're there all the time, and that's our job, and the job is there to assist and help you as best we can.
Thank you. And Kellie McConnell, please.
Thanks. From my perspective, my TDs answer my emails, but I don't see the action that we need as a country. I don't see that being taken. So my advice is get in touch with People Before Profit. We are a young party. We're democratically led. If you see something that we can improve on, then we can make it happen together. Join our community groups to be together. We're stronger together, and we can make change when we push them.
Thank you. Edward Timmins, please.
We have great direct engagement with our public reps, and even probably more so as a councillor, as the only county councillor here. Like, I answer all my own phones, all my own emails, all my own letters, all my own Facebook, because I don't have any resources that maybe a TD has. But if I became a TD, I would still like to have that direct engagement with people. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly to Ciaran Hogan, please.
Okay. I recently started a non-profit activist group here called Civil Action Wicklow, and we have been encouraging people to attend their local council meetings, and importantly to know when their council meetings are. So I've been taking interviews on the street from various people and asking them simple questions. Who are your local representatives? Where do they meet? When do they meet? The general lack of knowledge there is quite staggering. We definitely need to do more to make sure that people know all their local reps and where and when they can get involved. And I would like to run a program where every new house purchased will get a political pack. Will basically say, you are in this area, these are your reps, this is when they meet.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you very much to our candidates, especially to those who've been able to stick with us for the entirety of this evening, and for sticking so well to time. I do realise that it's very challenging, and it takes a degree of discipline when you're talking about something that you're passionate about. So we very much appreciate very thoughtful answers condensed into such a short time. I'd also like to say thank you to those in the community who've been able to tune in, whether it's been for part or for all of this. And obviously this presentation and all of the contributions that the candidates have made will be put up onto the the PPN YouTube channel. I think this is an extraordinarily valuable opportunity for constituents to get to know the candidates who are standing. It's a vital part of our democracy that citizens do get that opportunity to hear what candidates are offering and to be able to engage with them on the issues that matter in their lives, in their communities. And that's what this evening was all about. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to hand over now to Carina Holmes, who's representing Wicklow Older People's Council, just to close out this evening's session. There you go, Carina. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Harriet. Just on behalf of Wicklow's PPN and Wicklow's Older People's Council, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening. We would also like to thank Harriet for facilitating our event, and she did this previously for us as well and did a fantastic job, as always. We hope that this webinar has given our members a sound introduction to all the candidates. We also hope that the meeting has provided an insight into where all the candidates' interests lie and what work and issues they might prioritise if they are successful on the 29th of November. We hope that in turn, this meeting has given the candidates an insight into the concerns and priorities of our members, and should they be successful on the 29th of November, they will work towards achieving positive outcomes on many, if not all, of these issues. As Conor from the PPN Secretariat mentioned earlier, we are aware that there have been far more questions submitted than there was time to ask. We have developed a document containing all questions, and this will be sent to the candidates in the hope that they will use them as a reminder of what our members see as important and what our members will use to measure the work by in the future. A link to the document will also be shared in upcoming PPN newsletters. We hope that the collaboration and engagement this evening continues and that we can work together for the betterment of society. We wish the candidates well in their endeavours and thank them and our members for their attendance tonight. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Helen and Grania from the PPN for organising this event. Many thanks to all of you who've tuned in this evening or who are watching on YouTube. Good night and God bless.
Before we go, I see Stephen and Edward have hands up. Stephen, did you want to say something?
Just very, very briefly, having met PPN networks from across the country, I just want to let the people in Wicklow know we have an exemplar of a PPN. And the reason for that is we've had Helen at the helm for the 10 years, and we celebrated 10 years of PPNs recently, and Grania there for a very long part of that as well. And that's been key to it. And I just want to acknowledge that, and I just hope people know and realise that. And I know the Wicklow Older People's Council is in very good hands with Carina at the helm there as well. And I just want to acknowledge that and thank you for the opportunities here tonight, and Conor as well, and Harriet for chairing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Edward, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to thank everyone who participated tonight and thank the PPN for organising this, and just to wish everyone the best of luck in the election. Like we all have one thing in common. We just want the betterment for the people of County Wicklow. And we'll always do that one way or the other, whether we get through or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night and thank you.
Good night.